Hello, everyone. Welcome to IPSI's Forum on Israel, Africa, and Black America. I am your host once again, Joshua Washington, Executive Director of the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. I am joined by my lovely wife, but also our board member and head of our Speakers Bureau, Miss Olga Washington as well. Hi, Olga.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mr. Washington.
We are we have a lot of things to talk about today, and not very much time. If you're listening, we're on Clubhouse. If you're on the Clubhouse app, we're on Instagram. We are on YouTube right now, on the IPSI page, the Facebook IPSI page, the Twitter IPSI page. So if you're on any of those platforms, join us. I see some people hopping on Instagram now. Hello, it's good to see you all. People are still coming in Clubhouse. Um, Hope everybody's doing well. So last week, I was letting you know that our CEO and founder was in Jerusalem. He was at the African Leadership Summit with Pastor Shagan. In a little bit, we'll have him come in and just share with you what the time that he had there. It was incredible, and we want to hear more from him. And I know that I said that I would only be with you last week, but I'm with you today. So I hope you will still stick around with us and enjoy this segment. Yes. So Olga, good to see you here today. I want to start with the first thing on the docket, which is which we've been sharing this quite a bit from our IPSI page, and that is that protests in Gaza have been erupting, and now it's been kind of sustaining for some days now. I mean, I think it's the first post I saw about it was about almost a week ago, I want to say.
Every week, yeah.
Yeah, and it's been these people's lives are in danger. You know, there have been some accounts on Twitter who've been sharing about young men and women who have been protesting Hamas, who is the ruling party in Gaza, and how they've had their feet on the necks of these young Palestinian families as well, men and women, children. What's been interesting is that, but not surprising, is that we haven't really seen any other coverage on this. We've seen lots of coverage, and we'll talk about this in a minute too. We've seen lots of coverage, or I have, on mainstream media from the terrorist attack that happened in Tel Aviv just yesterday, but I think only because they are reporting that, this is in response to something that happened in the West Bank a few days before that. And so it's like, where are the real pro-Palestinian activists is what we've been asking, right? The people who've been saying that they're fighting for the lives of these Palestinians. There are Palestinians right now in Gaza who are protesting, risking their lives, by the way. This is not even something that's legal or permitted in Gaza. There was a protest that happened a few years back called We Want to Live. Mm-hmm. And Hamas brought their tanks out. They were rolling over people. They were killing journalists who were reporting on it. Mm-hmm. They were raiding the homes of people who were posting about it. So like, if, we post stuff on social media all the time, they're posting something like, I'm in support of this protest. And Hamas would track them down. They would find them. Sorry, 1 second. I just hear some feedback here. They would track them down. They would find them. And then they would kill them. They'd find them in their homes. They would imprison them. They would kill them. So this is not something that is a common thing, or you don't have the freedom to do this kind of thing like you would do in the United States or in Israel, even, where people protest freely and on the daily. So, Olga, what more do you have to say about that?
A lot, to be honest, but I think as succinctly as I can be, is the first thing we need to note and remember is that Hamas isn't just a normal ruling authority, ruling government, ruling party, however you want to phrase it. They are actually a terrorist organization. They've been listed as a terrorist organization across many countries as well as international organizations. And their terror is implemented on the people of Gaza in various ways, whether it's using the innocent civilians, innocent children as human shields during times of war, or moments like now when these people of Gaza are risking their lives and getting on the street and saying, like, we want a better life. We're being oppressed, women's rights non-existent, freedom of speech non-existent, freedom of the press non-existent. And Hamas is just gunning them down. And there are actual pictures from years gone by of Hamas using bloodied bodies as almost like bean bags at the back of their cars, dragging them through the streets as a means of instilling terror on the people. And to your point, Joshua, pretty much silence from the mainstream media, pretty much silence from these pro-human rights activists, pretty much silence from people who say that they actually care about the rights as well as the livelihoods and the well-being of the Palestinian people, be they in Israel proper or in Gaza or in Judea Samaria, some people call it the West Bank. And so questions that we have as IPSI, and I also have as an individual, is are you really about the Palestinian people or are you just an Israel hater? Because if you really were about the Palestinian people, we'd be hearing your voice now, loud and clear. It's also a sad time for me as I recall the words that I heard from Inat Wolf, who's an incredible speaker. She's a former MK. She does incredible work, including writing great books. And last year, when the question was posed to her about does she see peace, I'm paraphrasing, these are my words in terms of her response, and she said that there needs to be fatigue on either side. So fatigue from the Jewish people as to we're going to give up the fact that Israel is our indigenous homeland, or fatigue from the Palestinian people as to no, we want our own state that excludes Jewish people. And that, unfortunately, in her observation, the actions by Hamas and the likes of the Palestinian Authority are energized by either the response of the West, and the response by the West is the pouring of money where there's no accountability by Hamas in terms of where they're putting the money. Are they actually using it for the upliftment of their people, which we know they aren't. They're funding their own bank accounts and becoming fat cats at that. But also they're energized by the West's lack of action in instances like this. So where's a condemnation from various international organizations, from various world governments? Like silence. And so Hamas knows that they can get away with these type of actions because actually they don't care, right? So it's very sad and it's unfortunate. We need to be doing better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, like I said, you said it, Hamas lives billionaires. They have mansions. They have multiple cars. They have helicopters. These people are sitting pretty, living fat, literally, while their people are doing their bidding for them. Speaking of the West and the West enabling, we're gonna hop right to this because this is actually kind of connected. While this is going on here in the West, we are also pumping this propaganda and we're indoctrinating our kids in the school systems. I'm just going to give two kind of examples here back to back. One, California high schools. So those who have been following us or following this, you know about this already. The critical ethnic studies curriculum that was introduced about a couple of years ago now. The first draft was horrendous. It was not only anti-Israel. It completely what's the word I'm looking for? It degrades civil rights icons, like especially Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It calls him weak and docile, and anyone who used his method of nonviolence, used his method of working within the system to create change. They castigated them, they threw them aside. So it wasn't it was opinion. It was political opinion. It wasn't education. It wasn't teaching about the civil rights movement and teaching about Black Americans who fought for this country and teaching about World War I and World War II. It was teaching a political opinion and pushing that as truth. So we were pushing back on that. We were fighting that. We at IPSI were fighting that even in our personal capacity. Some of us spoke at hearings and we came against the historical fallacies and even some of the just complete falsehoods in there. Well, it hasn't gone anywhere, and not only has it not gone anywhere, there's a couple other drafts, and then they were trying to change some stuff, and then after that, the first draft got reintroduced, and then some teachers decided they were just going to take it upon themselves to take the first draft and manually go to schools and convince them to use the first draft curriculum. So this was always the thing from the beginning. So not only has nothing really changed since then, it's gotten kind of worse. Just recently, Gavin Newsom is supporting this, and he announced that California high school students now are going to use this curriculum called the. Oh, sorry. Give me 1 second. There's included in this curriculum now, which is called the Institute for Critical Study of Zionism, which is in this curriculum. It teaches high school students in California that Zionism is a form of terrorism. That is now a part of the curriculum. So not only have we not stepped back from anti-Zionism, it's full throttle ahead. This is going to be taught in California high schools across the state. We'll have children grow up, go to college, and I'm not even talking about colleges first. We're going to get to college in just a moment, and continue to be indoctrinated and be in places of political power in our country, learning from a young age that Zionism is a form of terrorism. So first of all, my question again is kind of similar to what the Palestinians protesting in Gaza, the protesting Hamas, is I mean, I see some people talking about it. Where's this outcry? Where's this outrage? And why isn't there bigger pushback against this? Why does it seem like Gavin Newsom is getting a pass on this? Why does it seem like this is going with not very much, at least from my perspective and looking at all this stuff, not very much energy is going into pushing back on this? What is the big deal? Is it really not that important? What's going on?
You asking me?
I'm asking you.
I mean, a part of me, I'm dumbstruck about it, to be honest. A part of me thinks that people are just choosing to live under a rock, and I say that with as much respect as I can, because if you recall, there were lots of people like the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel, as well as other institutes that we're familiar with and friends with, that were saying, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem. And we were shut down. People said, no, you're gaslighting, and no, you're blowing up an issue that's actually not there. And now that it's made this unfortunate progression, I think there's a little bit of perhaps buyer's remorse, if I can use that phrase. And there's then also a bit of cowardice to say, we were wrong and we actually now need to do extra work, or the hope and the prayer that this is all going to go away and it's only in one state, it's only in California, and it's only in a small section of the schools, not realizing that what happens in California for the most part spreads like wildfire across the United States. And notions like this, where you start small, just with regards to Zionism as racism, which was something that people were very familiar with and had become mainstream. And again, it was shut down and said, no, it's not that big a deal. It's not that big a deal. Look where we've gone to now. So we've gone from Zionism as racism to actually Zionism as terrorism. Like, are you being serious? I also think that the source of this type of anti-Semitism, because it is, people just don't want to touch it, right? It almost seems as if there are particular sources of anti-Semitism that we should go gung-ho for and we should raise the alarm about, but there's a lack of consistency, which for me speaks to a lack of moral integrity to be able to consistently speak truth where there needs to be truth and call things out where things need to be called out. And this is unfortunately one example of how much worse things are going to get until we recognize where the problem is or where the problems are and show no favor with regards to calling it out.
Absolutely. And and to push that even further, I would submit that enough of us, or a number of us at least, do know where the problem is. And I'm basing this on conversations I've had and the things that we've all seen, is that we see this happening. I'll list another one as well, because this is connected. Princeton University. Princeton University, there's a book now that's in Princeton University that's claiming that Israel harvests the organs of Palestinians. It's taught in a Princeton humanitarians course that Israel harvests. Not only is that not true,
it's a blood libel.
That's actually a blood libel. That's an institutional blood libel that's being taught at one of the highest, most prestigious universities in America.
Yeah.
And not only is that not true, but Hamas does harvest organs of Africans and Arabs. No one ever talks about that. So now they're twisting that, putting on Israel. And the worst part is, a professor will be teaching this to a bunch of bright young students who will no doubt graduate and occupy some of the most powerful positions in the world. I think that we do know where this problem is coming from. I just don't think that enough of us are ready to face it head on or to talk about it.
Why do you think
Why?
not?
Say again.
I was going to ask, why do you think not?
So for one, I think that it's not it's a couple of things. It's a dangerous topic. Some people are scared. Some people feel like, because it's the truth that this curriculum, and we've learned this even from a few years back. I learned this from some partners of IPSI when we went to LA to talk about this curriculum stuff together. I was in Los Angeles, talked to Lori Cardozo Moore is her name. We were talking about this, and she was showing me that some of this curriculum that's being taught in elementary, in K through 12 schools, and in even in college, the publishers and the authors are not even from the U.S. They're coming from foreign countries. They're coming from countries like Qatar. Qatar is writing our textbooks that are in some of these schools. And so when you look at that and you say, okay, how is that able to bypass, whether it's our educational boards in this country, what the heck? I think that when you dig, you might find players in there that you weren't prepared to see, or just big money behind this kind of stuff. This is big money, and people are they don't want to risk, risking their families' lives, risking their lives, whatever the case may be, which is understandable. At the same time, I think some of the same people who are afraid to speak out will just shift their energy to other things that aren't as important, and really hammer down on that. So like cutting off the tree at the branches instead of at the root is really, I think, what the big issue is. I mean, because come on, if we're talking about institutional racism, institutional Jew hatred, this is literally blood libels being taught at an institutional level at one of the most famous. You can go anywhere in the world and say Princeton, they'll go, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Listening to you talk about cutting off the branches versus going for the root also brings to mind the importance of us in this space and in this field to sit down and say, do we really want to, I'm not going to say end the war, because I personally don't believe that we'll ever fully do away with anti-Semitism. People are people, and evil is going to exist for as long as there are people, but we can definitely turn down the tide. And as part of that, the conversation is, are we serious about this? Because if we are, humbly, I put to you that we'll sit down, we'll rethink where are the main issues that are actually plaguing us. Somebody may say, okay, but Olga, but Joshua, but IPSI, it's happening all over. And so we've just got to go for where we go. Yes. And if the house is burning and you've got a pot on the stove that's burning, do you go for the pot or do you go for the house? I also think that our attention and our focus in many instances is misplaced. And until we take a hard look at ourselves and a hard look at our strategies, then we're going to continue around this merry-go-round and actually not be effective, and unfortunately do more harm in the long term.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. And I think that it is pertinent that we have these conversations and do exactly what you said, because and those are just two examples. A few years ago now, Harvard had hired former PLO Secretary General Saeb Erekat onto their what position was it? Sorry, I wasn't even going to talk about this, but you just reminded me of it. To mentor as a mentor at Harvard University. When you search for it, you get these kind of smaller, obscure, publications. Nothing about that. That's literally like hiring Joseph Goebbels to teach at a college here in the U.S. Like, you literally are hiring someone who was a high up Palestine Liberation Organization official now to mentor students at another very prestigious and high university. That's what I believe in my heart of hearts, and we've talked about this too in our conversations at IPSI. Honestly, sorry, I'm hearing something. Sorry, I apologize, everyone. I believe in my heart of hearts here, and we've talked about it here at IPSI, that if we attack these universities where it hurts, which is their pocketbooks, right? If we attack these universities, like literally this stuff that's going on, these boycott, divestment, and sanctions measures that are being passed, these students who are harassing Jewish students on campus, all that stuff, administration and faculty who are shutting down pro-Israel groups on campus. All that really needs to happen is legal action needs to be taken, because they're stifling the students' First Amendment right, that you can't do stuff like that. If we attack them where it hurts, I think in an instant they'll stop, because they'll stop getting their. We are going to cut off funding from you if you keep hosting terrorists at your school to talk about terrorism. We're going to cut off your funding if you continue to silence your Jewish students on campus who want to talk about Israel. I think in a heartbeat they'll stop. I mean, that's I don't understand why we haven't really cut to that chase yet. It's dumbfounding to me. But these are literally the plants that grow our minds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is where the next wave in 20 years, we're going to wonder where all this anti-Semitism is coming from at high academic levels. And like the squad now, at this rate, 10 years from now, the squad will be like half of Congress. We're going to go, oh, where is anti-Semitism coming from? I can tell you 10 years ago, we were saying, hey guys, look at our universities. Hello, look at and no, and we just kind of went, let's look at, like you said, let's focus on the pot and not focus on the house. So I couldn't agree with you more. Olga. Once again, if you're listening in, I see you guys. I see my brother Simon getting in here on Instagram. Nice to see you, sir. It's been a minute since we've chatted. Anita, shout out to Anita Graves. It's good to see you. Benji, I see you there as well. Sir Francis, sir, it's nice to see you. Thank you all for logging in. I see you, Marcella. Thank you all for tuning in. It's IPSI's weekly forum on Israel, Africa, and Black America. You can follow us anywhere. Right now, we're live on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and then I'm also live on my personal Instagram, Josh Wash IPSI. You can join us. I'm here with Olga Washington, CEO. Wow, Olga Washington. Well, maybe CEO of our family, but Sir Francis Amadla Owetu. I see you, sir. I'm here with Olga, who is our board member and head of our speakers bureau. Olga, were you going to say something just now, ma'am?
I was. You were listing all the various platforms that we're live on now. I do want to give notice to the fact that even though we're not live on it, it's a great place to follow us, and that's on Substack. We have a set of articles that come out every few weeks, Africa Weekly, lots of information, lots of very interesting and intriguing articles that are put out by IPSI staff, as well as guests of IPSI, friends of IPSI. And it's a wonderful place to get information and just stay up to date with what's happening in the Africa-Israel relationship.
Absolutely. Totally. And this is good. I'm glad we're doing this. So I want to pivot our focus now, because I want to talk about something that it's an ongoing thing that IPSI is probably the longest amount of time that IPSI has been talking about this. And then I found out just a few months ago, I realized that both IPSI, my wife Olga's organization in South Africa, Daisy, Defend, Embrace, Invest, and Support Israel, and this other organization all started in the same year. That other organization is called Black Lives Matter. Yes, Marcella, I will put the link, ibsi.substack.com. I'll make sure to put that on the Instagram link. I wrote an article about it called "One of These Things Is Not Like the Other" on our Substack page. And I want to talk about that because some stuff has happened recently in Oakland, California, as a result of a policy that majority of Black Americans knew wasn't going to work. IPSI knew from the beginning wasn't going to work. And that policy, that movement, is called Defund the Police. I'm not bringing this up so that we can say we told you so, although we did tell you. But I am bringing this up to highlight something that is very key and crucial, because right now Black Lives Matter is not really trending, but the effects of the massive support that they've gotten, even despite the Black voices and other voices saying, hey, this is not good, being ignored. So in Oakland, I was just in Oakland about a month ago now. For those who know, I do music professionally. I was there for an annual concert series called Oakland First Fridays. My band played there in downtown Oakland, I think right off Telegraph. huge. It's always huge, right? Thousands of people are there. We had a great time, had a lot of great conversations, talked with a lot of business owners, especially Black business owners who have connections, have sister organizations in Africa and even in Israel. I met this organization, and I'm not wearing the shirt now, but they had all this. It was an art gallery, and they had T-shirts with the word Oakland translated in different language and South African dialects and Ghanaian dialects and Farsi and Hebrew. And I talked to a guy, this very intelligent Black gentleman who was just telling me about the history of their business and why and all this. It was amazing. I drove past, or I was riding in the car with someone. We drove past a church that was broken, busted, condemned, empty, a huge church. And I said, "Oh wait, I remember reading something about like one of the oldest African Methodist Episcopal AME churches being destroyed here in Oakland. I wonder what happened." It wasn't through a riot. I think it was a fire that happened, and so it kind of got my curiosity going. And I remember that our good friend from Temple Beth Abraham, Rabbi, oh, now his name just escaped me. Oh, what's his name? Our friend, our rabbi friend from Temple Beth Abraham. It's going to come to me in a couple of seconds. And I'll say, but Temple Beth Abraham, Rabbi Mark Bloom of Temple Beth Abraham, he actually has been housing that AME church in his synagogue so they can have services on Sundays, which is not only an amazing thing to do, but just knowing, if you know anything about when it comes to observant Jews, it's not something that's very easily done for different reasons, right? The size, or sometimes it's just because of the observance. Sometimes there's a lot of stuff going on in synagogues. Sometimes it's not an easy thing. There's a lot of inconveniences that he has to go through to make this happen, but he's been doing it. So that's all been great. A couple weeks after I leave Oakland, our CEO and founder, Dumisani Washington, shares an article with us that Oakland's NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, they call for a public state of emergency and release an open letter to the Oakland Police Department. And they're decrying the crime that has skyrocketed. And they blame a few things. One of the things that they do blame is the lax punishment for criminals. One of the things they decry is there are not enough cops on the street, and specifically because I'm trying to find here we go, the direct quote here. In their article, they blame, and I quote, failed leadership, including the movement to defund the police, our district attorney's unwillingness to charge and prosecute people who murder and commit life-threatening serious crimes, and the proliferation of anti-police rhetoric have created a heyday for Oakland criminals. Now, I said, I remember that Oakland actually did pass a bill to defund the police. This was like the big platform among many things that Black Lives Matter was pushing, even though polls were done to show that over 80% of Black Americans were not for defunding the police for obvious reasons, right? And they're pushing this and pushing this and pushing this and pushing this and pushing it. And we're pushing back. And the only Black people I saw who were really pushing to defund the police were people who didn't live in these neighborhoods, people who were wealthy politicians who could afford private security for themselves. And we said, you guys, this is a game. Mm-hmm. This is a game to destabilize our society, mm-hmm. because the less police, Black people aren't stupid. We know what bad policing is, right? But we don't want no police. We can, in these communities, I have friends who can tell you, yeah, that police officer, you don't want to mess with him, but these guys are cool, all that stuff. But we don't want there to be no police, because when there's no law enforcement, that means the law is not getting enforced. Who's going to enforce the law? And so it's been about 2 years now. The article that I found from 2 years ago that pushed the measure to defund the police, it was June of 2021, said that the police department in Oakland would be defunded $17 million over the course of the next 2 years. So now we're 2 years from that date. And the NAACP, not some whatever you guys want to label right-wing Q and whatever, the Black people in Oakland are saying this sucks. This is the worst thing. Crime is everywhere. People are getting killed. Little kids are getting killed. Mm-hmm. Kids, I'm not talking about kids getting caught up in the crossfire killed. I'm talking about these gang members who are killing little kids to get back at the whoever they're angry with. There was a guy, I think it was Chicago, who used to be in a gang. He was talking, he was on Twitter, he went viral on Twitter, and he said, man, back when I was doing all this stuff, it wasn't good. He said, but if we had a problem with you, we had a problem with you. If we were about to jump you and we saw that you were with your kid, we would be like, I'll get you next time. You better be lucky you better be lucky your mom was with you. Nowadays, he's like, people are like seeking out little children
Yeah.
and shooting them in the face. This is what's happening in places like Oakland and Chicago. And people are saying, and all this time we said this was a slow moving train wreck. Ipsy and many others were saying, you guys, it's 1 + 1 = 2. You remove the police, you lessen the police, there's less police presence, you're going to have more violent crimes because criminals are going to be aware of the fact that there are less police. Stats show that just having a police car on the corner of a neighborhood will instantly reduce crime, because most criminals don't want to actually have it out with the police. They're trying to commit their crimes where they won't get caught. So if I'm a criminal, I'm walking down the street and I see a police car parked on the corner, I'm more likely to walk away and try something else because I'm not trying to get arrested. I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do. So we said this is not rocket science. It's not like, oh, well, it's 50-50. I guess we'll see. No, we knew this was going to happen because this is what happens when you have less police. And now, and this is my point I'm trying to get at, now that it's not sexy anymore, no one's really talking about BLM. No one really has their donation link in their bio. No one has the Blackout Tuesday thing. Everyone who has supported BLM, everyone who has come against us for telling the truth about BLM. And unfortunately, most of our pushback has come from either white people, or unfortunately, people in this space, in this pro-Israel space, right? People we find were coming against us for coming against Black Lives Matter. All those people now have moved on, have not said a single word, don't give a care about Oakland or anything like that, doing their own thing now, move on to the next, whatever the trend is, while now the people of Oakland are suffering with blood from this reckless decision and from this virtue signaling that's led to this. So we're bringing this up to say, yes, it's more than just a we told you so. It's, you guys, we have to stop these trend things. Listen, you need to listen to the people. And if you don't know what's going on in a situation, then either ask, get deep, do your research, or just leave it alone. But when you hop on an issue you don't know nothing about and march with people because you want to say that you're for someone, so you do the thing that everyone's forcing you to do, I guarantee you the results of that will not be good. And we're seeing that right now in Oakland. I'm sorry, I've been talking. Olga, go ahead and share what you're going to say.
Only a few things that I want to add, and that is we see Oakland now in the news because it's been raised to that level. How many other communities are in the exact same situation where crime is through the roof, where people are helpless and have actually experienced a lot of loss and a lot of lesser quality of life as a result of Black Lives Matter? And for those people that were saying, well, it's about the Black people and we really are concerned about their lives, I'm like, okay, where are you now? If Black Lives Matter, you would be raising this as an alarm to say, okay, Black lives do matter. And so we want to see this addressed. I love your comment about the trends. And I do think that one of the reasons why there is this move to just hop on trends, even though it's not directly related to this space, is the fact that we've got a lack of manly leadership. I remember growing up and my dad would remind me to take a step back and just think through things in relation to my emotions. And thank God I've married into a family where my father-in-law does the exact same thing. It's like, okay, no, hold on. Just because it feels right, just because you might think that it's right and the consequences don't come across very clearly, like take a step, breathe in a little bit, and actually, to your point, you spoke about 1 + 1 = 2. Consider the actions in relation to the words that you're saying. And because there's this lack of leadership in the homes, in the communities, we have a culture, or rather we're living in a culture where we're very reactive, we're very responsive because I feel like this, because it seems like the right thing to do. I just do, to the ignorance of actually what are the consequences of my actions. And then when the consequences do show themselves up, I'm too embarrassed. I don't have a backbone. I'm a coward. And I don't want to go back and address and say, you know, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Shout out to all of those people who we have seen that have been like, you know what? I didn't fully recognize and understand what I was lending my voice, my finances to. And actually, I want to turn those things around. You know, I don't speak on behalf of all of the Black community, but I would like to say quite confidently that there are communities that are thankful for the assistance that's now forthcoming, but we need to do more and we need to do better.
Absolutely. And to piggyback on what you just said, we are not, and my father says this all the time, we don't speak for the Black community. We're not voices for the Black. We are voices in the Black community who are saying these things, and we do represent a lot of people in our community though who have been saying this. So you're absolutely right. BLM, as you know, while we were debating whether or not they're good, all this stuff, there are so many Black initiatives. There are so many. Shout out to Pastor Corey Brooks of Project Hood, who, by the way, his facility a few years back was destroyed by a BLM/Antifa riot. Which, by the way, and we're very aware of this too. Those riots, those protests that turned into violent riots that destroyed lots of property, including lots of my Black and minority-owned property, especially like in Kenosha, like we talked about before. Those the ones who are rioting, like I said, Black, white, or brown, the ones who are actually destroying the property were usually not from those areas. Some people would get flown in, set up, put in hotels. They go into their hotel room, change their clothes, put on some more raggedy clothes, and go out there and start blowing stuff up. Not lit, I mean, they have bombs, but they're like, breaking windows and destroying property and destroying. So one of the facilities that was destroyed was one of Pastor Corey Brooks' facilities in Chicago. He has this facility set up in the most dangerous block in Chicago called O Block. And I remember Ami Horowitz, again, that Black Jewish religion, he was like one of the only people that highlighted that he came there and interviewed Pastor Corey Brooks. And he talked about it. And he was like, of all the stuff that goes on here, and Pastor Corey Brooks even said, he was like, I don't think first of all, I don't think these people were from here, because people who are from here know what this is. But also he was like, we're talking about Black lives, like what Pastor Corey Brooks does for young Black kids every single day in Chicago, equipping them, getting them off the streets and equipping them and giving them the tools to become functioning members of society. And now he's raising, I can't remember how many millions of dollars to build an even larger one. I mean, Pastor Corey Brooks is one of the examples of someone who does the work. $35 million. This man, and he's a tireless, this is a force to be reckoned with in Chicago. And his facility was destroyed. How are you then going to say you're for Black lives and support Black Lives Matter when they are destroying Black initiatives that are helping Black people? So like we're saying is, in the future, we have to do better. We have to do better with, just because someone there's a term, and I'll come back to this in our next topic, called, we say this all the time, we say all skin folk ain't kinfolk, right? Just because I'm Black and you're Black and that person's Black does not mean that we all think the same thing. And it actually doesn't mean that we have each other's best interests at heart either. Just because somebody Black gets on camera and says, this is what we need, that doesn't mean that's what we actually need. You don't even have to take our word for it just because we're telling you. Just investigate for yourself. Do what you got to do, but don't just turn on TV and say, okay, this is what we're doing today. This is what we're doing today. Great. All right, defund the police. No more nuclear family for Black people. No, we come against nuclear family and Israel's an apartheid. Say, okay, whatever you guys say, how much money do you need? There you go. No, you guys. So yes, unfortunately, Oakland is struggling right now, and in large part due to the defund the police initiative that passed. All those people who are gaslighting, all those people who are pushing for it, have nothing to say now. They are saying absolutely nothing about Oakland. Even when they've been tagged and addressed and they have nothing to say. They've moved on. Their agenda was achieved. They moved on to the next thing.
Well, hopefully this conversation will spark an energy and several initiatives to actually redress this, because it's important.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Olga. Again, y'all, welcome. Someone just asked on Instagram, why do you think your voices and points of view are not heard more? Kyle Godfrey, it's good to see you.
Well, I think they're
That's a
heard,
great
but are we
question.
listened to? There's a difference between hearing and actually taking stock and paying attention and going against the grain, particularly when it's the unpopular opinion or the unpopular narrative. Sorry, I just had to jump in there with that.
No, yeah. I think I'm still thinking. I think that is definitely a huge part of it is, because usually when it's time to tell the truth, it's not convenient. Usually when it's convenient to tell the truth, it's not time. And I think that Ipsy, Daisy, and BLM have all started in the same year. Ipsy was calling out BLM, I think, like the next year when they started doing the Free Palestine things from Ferguson to Palestine march. We said, okay. My dad was like, this is a game. This is all a game. And no one wanted to hear it. It was messing with people's flow. Everyone wanted to feel good. The ads looked amazing. They loved how it made them look, the pictures and the fists and the Black Lives Matter huge signs painted on the streets of, by the way, what are some of now the poorest parts of cities in different parts of America. Many of those poor people homes are Black people, but it felt good. And in that moment, anyone who said otherwise was just a wet blanket. I think that was part of it.
I also think we need to recognize how ingrained Marxist ideology has become part of our culture. Even though it's not screaming at you, Marxist, 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 the very notion of oppressed versus the oppressor is something that is unfortunately it's infiltrated every part of our society. And so when BLM is going out there and going, oh, we're for the oppressed in relation to the oppressor, it speaks to people's notion of justice, social justice, which is not the same as true justice, and we need to go back to true justice. But it speaks to that notion, and it speaks to the fact that now I have a cause that I have to fight for. And so when you then challenge that, you're challenging this notion as to oppressed versus oppressor, and it's actually then a question of truth and a question of real justice. And that then causes, in my opinion, almost like cognitive dissonance for many people. And in many industries, and it goes against what many people have been taught, because I'm supposed to think of the underdog and be for the underdog. And again, we're not saying that there are not causes where you do need to speak on behalf of the vulnerable and speak for those that are oppressed. I mean, that's a biblical principle too. We also need to recognize and call it for what it is, that Marxism has become ingrained in our culture in a very, very simplistic, but a very deep and unfortunate way that is manifesting itself in ways that sometimes people wake up and they don't even recognize it. But again, we're speaking about this and we'll continue to speak it, and hopefully more and more people will wake up to this fact.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, yeah, that you reminded me of something too. Thank you, Benji. Shouts out to us. He says he can send it to all his friends.
Hey.
Appreciate that, sir. Yes, that it is a good fight, and it's a fight that needs to be fought. Yeah, the founders of Black Lives Matter. I mean, they're not founders anymore. They stepped down and taken a ton of money with them and live in their mansions, which is a different story for a different day. But hundreds of millions of dollars BLM has raised since they've been founded. They have declared themselves. They said, we are trained, not just Marxists. We are trained Marxists. They said that early. I mean, all the signs were right. Whenever we called out Black Lives Matter, it wasn't, the pushback was not from BLM people. Like, it wasn't from Black people who supported Black Lives, because all we would do is say what they're saying. We would say Black Lives Matter is against the nuclear family. And they would say, yeah, we said that. And people would go, oh, no, you guys don't understand it. No, you guys. We would say Black Lives Matter says they're trained Marxists.
Didn't you write an article on this?
Yeah, it's called Black Lives Matter's. I wrote a few articles, but one is called Black Lives Matter's Jewish Problem in their own words. I think that's one of the words. I think I said Jewish problem. That was just highlighting their anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, which is the same thing. But they, I didn't get pushback from them, because all I did was say what they said. I said, this is what they're saying about this, about that. They're like, yeah, that's our platform. That's our position. The founder was at some hearing saying, just like apartheid South Africa, we're going to fight, the Zionist project. Like, this was, and they're like, yeah, that's what we said. The only pushback we actually got was from other people who were like, oh, no. Oh, no. You have to understand. It's not our turn. We have to stand. It's not your turn. So you're okay with them just dogging you as a people. So yeah, absolutely. I think that the signs were there, but people wanted a cause to stand for. And I think that that's going to be the challenge even moving forward. That's always going to be the thing, is the mass formation psychosis, really what it is. You get swept up in the fanfare of it all and attack anyone who is against it. And when it's all over, you look back and go, wow, that was stupid. Yeah, you should probably ask why you got caught up in that, and maybe try to do some, I don't know, some internal stuff to make sure that that doesn't happen again. But yes, so I hope that, like you said, Olga, this galvanizes people. Let's support, the people of Oakland in what they're saying. I should have had this video queued up, but this happened about a year ago. Also, there were Black families, men and women, who came together with the Oakland Police Department in Oakland to protest all the violence. So it was already increasing about a year ago. They did this whole event outside in Oakland to protest the violence and the violent crimes that have been happening. And who bombed, not literally, but I'm talking about like who disrupted their event and started calling people out and none, was a bunch of white kids who were cussing out the police and telling them, you know, and this, I remember this Black elderly woman was young. She was like, she was mad. How dare you get like, this is our community. These are our people. And it was such an iconic scene because you have these Black people in Oakland who are saying, we need the police, we need better policing, we need that. And then you have these white kids coming in telling them to shut up, telling them to sit down and be quiet, telling them, no, you don't need police. Police are all cops are bastards. Like, this is what was happening. And I was like, wow, if this is not literally a microcosm of what's been happening right now when it comes to this issue. So people of Oakland, we're praying for you. And if you guys are in California, if you're in the Bay Area, then please, do what you can. If you say that you are for this and you want to help, there are ways, there are people there who are fighting the fight. Absolutely. So, anyway, I'm just reading a couple of stupid comments on YouTube. I want to shift gears for a moment again. Now, so shifting gears one more time here. So actually, we have a bit of good news before I shift. I want to shift to the good news just for a moment, and that is fairly recently here that there are 5 heads of HBCUs, of historically Black colleges and universities, went to Israel because for their STEM research. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So these heads of these of the HBCUs went to Israel to check out for their own STEM departments, and came away so impressed. Their professors who have been saying that they didn't even know that Israel was on the cutting edge of technology. They had no idea, and they were like, when we came to Israel, we were like, I really didn't know. I really didn't know this, but now my imagination is being excited. He's saying like, I wish we could take all our students, but we have to at least take, every HBCU, every college needs to at least take some students because there's so much we can learn from Israel. If we can put that link to that article up there, Maria. But it's an amazing sight to see, and it further the fact that Israel continues to give like this. We talked about it last week at Kibbutz Malkiah up in northern Israel. They have a program where they employ Africans. They teach them how to farm, agriculture, and all those things. They have them for a certain amount of time, and then they send them back to their countries to apply the skills that they've learned to their own countries, to teach other people, to get job placement and all that kind of stuff. There's no return on this investment for Israel. There are so many genuine people and NGOs in Israel who really want to see Africa rise. There's so many amazing people who are for that. They do these things with no return on their investment. There's no way that they have no hold on people. They say, hey, we just want to teach you, we want to develop you, and go back home and do something with your country. Here you go. Literally. I mean, that's how incredible is that. So here we see it now with HBCUs. Israel's just freely sharing their information, their advancement, their technology. It's incredible. It's incredible. Olga, what do you have to say about that?
Again, a lot, but as succinctly as possible. It, for me, goes to show, amongst many other reasons, why it is important that we have healthy, strong relationships with Israel. We have got so many needs in our communities, whether it's here in the United States or on the African continent, and Israel has the expertise. As small a nation as she is, and still fairly young in terms of her rebirth, she has got so much to give and so much to offer. and the opportunity for our young people, in fact, even older people across various industries, education to counterterrorism, the list is endless, to be able to learn and glean from Israel and what Israel does for the betterment, the improvement of those people and those communities. That's where Black Lives Matter should be coming into the picture, right?
Mhm.
Because if you
Mhm.
really are about improving the lives of Black people, then you'd want to engage in opportunities that will see growth. And this growth has been proven across the African continent and also various communities here in the United States. So it's something that we feel very passionate about. Ipsy, Daisy as well, and why we'll continue to speak the truth and continue to educate, because we want our people to not be blinded by the hatred and blinded by the lies that prevents opportunities like this, right? That's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Imagine if every young person in all HBCUs and frankly any institution across the United States was
Yeah.
given the opportunity to go to Israel, to see, to learn, have their imaginations reimagined, if that makes sense, or
Mhm.
have their imaginations ignited. What incredible results could there be across the world? So it's very, very
Mhm.
exciting.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's I want to read a couple of quotes from professors there. This one from President Quentin T. Ross Jr. of Alabama State University. He said, "Everywhere we've gone, everyone has been so engaging and willing to share and want to give information. To experience that type of innovation and drive
Mhm,
has been refreshing."
mhm,
Another one, I love this one, and this is Dr. Harold Martin Jr. of North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. He says, "Prior to our visit, I would not have identified Israel as a leading technological and innovative nation. I leave with a very different perspective, having interacted with so many outstanding universities thriving in areas of innovation and technology that are providing outstanding graduates to leading global technology companies here in Israel and around the world." It's again, this corroborates what we continue to say, is that Israel
mhm.
freely gives this stuff. They they offer this. They have all these advancements and they offer it to the world. It's absolutely incredible, and it is great to see. Um, all right, y'all. If you've been listening, this is the IPSI's Forum on Israel, Africa, and Black America. I hope you guys have been enjoying so far. Tag your friends, tell them to hop in. If you're on Clubhouse, ping your friends, ping your neighbors, ping your enemies, whatever. Tell them to come check it out. If you're on Facebook, we're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I'm going live on my Instagram page, Joshua Ipsy. And soon we'll be going live on LinkedIn. That'll be very soon once we get enough subscribers. If you're on LinkedIn, go to our page and follow it. Once we get enough. No, we are on LinkedIn, but we can't go live on LinkedIn yet until we have, I think, at least 300 followers. We just started it. So if you're on LinkedIn, go to Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel, give us a follow. And next time we go live, hopefully we'll see you live on there as well. All right, you all. So last thing I want to talk about, obviously, for those who have been on social media and not under a rock, this past 48 hours has been a pretty intense 48 hours concerning Jamie Foxx. A lot of discussion, a lot of debate has been had, a lot of high tensions, high emotions. Our CEO went live on Instagram earlier today to address some of it. You can go to his page and check that out as well. And we also echoed his sentiments and everything. And I want to just address that briefly here, because it really has been, I think, addressed in many different ways. And like we were talking about earlier, as important as this, in terms of the broader principle that this highlights, this particular subject, as important as it is, there's so many other things that need our attention, including the stuff that we were talking about earlier with in the education system, literally blood libels being taught in Princeton, former PLO general being at Harvard and California high school, all that kind of stuff. But we still want to address this because it's something that we've been talking about for the past couple of days. And so, Jamie Foxx posted on Instagram a text that says, he said, "They killed this dude named Jesus. What do you think they'll do to you?" And so that sparked a lot of controversy. Well, there's a few different groups of people. There are comments that knew he was probably subtweeting somebody specific. There are those who took offense to it, who especially those in the Jewish community who took offense to it, because they killed Jesus. That if you're in this space, if you know any, especially observant Jews or just people in this pro-Israel space or anything, you know that would make antennas go up. Who's the they you're talking about? Are you talking about Jews? It's a common blood libel especially amongst white supremacists, Nazis. It originated there, and even the early Roman Catholic Church, all that stuff, that the Jews killed Jesus. So there was that. And then you had the anti-Semites who also were hopping on that train to further their Jew hatred, right? And to dump on the Jews even more, all that kind of stuff. And so we saw that. And then not too far after, I think just some hours later, Jamie Foxx deleted that post, put up another post, and he said, and he apologized. I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah, there's the article right there. I want to apologize. He said, I realized I offended people. I was in no way meaning to offend. I was, my comments were directed at someone who has betrayed me. And I was writing about that. I've got nothing but love for the Jewish community. And that was it. And so after he did that, there's a reason why we were quiet at first, because we weren't sure what he was talking about. But we also know that there's that phrase he said, and we're going to go back to that in a minute, that they killed Jesus. What do you think they'll do to you? Is its own phrase or principle, not even that exact phrase all the time, but that principle that is taught in, especially in the Black church, that goes back for generations. The concept of a Judas, the concept of a traitor. Even back when there were slaves that would sometimes sell out other slaves to their masters, right? There were slaves that, the reason why Harriet Tubman, so when Harriet Tubman was leading people through the Underground Railroad to freedom in Canada, sometimes there were slaves who got afraid and wanted to go back. They would change their mind. I don't want to do this. They're hiding, they're running in secret, they're risking their lives, they're trying to get to freedom. And there's some slaves, change their minds. I don't want to do this. I'm too scared. I don't want to do this. I don't do this. And what Harriet Tubman would do is shoot them in the face and kill them. She would kill them because, in her mind, if your resolve is weak enough to not want to pursue your freedom, then you're probably too weak to keep this a secret. And you're going to ruin this for the rest of us who are trying to attain freedom. At this point, it's either freedom or death. You can't go back. So sure, you can go. And then she would shoot them. Why? Yeah, because of that. You're not going to mess this up for me and everyone else. We're going to get free. And I don't want you going back and then telling master where we are. And then now we all got to go back, or we all got to get killed. No. So that concept of a traitor, not only is it something that is unique to, not unique, but not only is that specific to our community, but it's very specific to us with each other. Meaning, usually when people invoke this whole Judas thing, yeah, Judas betrayed Jesus with a kiss. Be careful who you let close into your space. All that kind of stuff. They kill Jesus, they'll do the same thing to you. That is all. That tends to be something that we do in relation to each other, right? Black people to Black people. Lauryn Hill has a couple of songs actually in her album Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, where she talks about that. She has a song called Forgive Them, Father. That whole song is about traitors. And she said, you never suppose it's the ones closest to you. She's talking about, it's the whole crabs in a barrel mentality. She's talking about people who are close, family, close friends, people you would never expect. So when we saw that post from Jamie and we saw the backlash, internally, we didn't even post anything. We went, well, yeah, I don't know if that's what he meant. Now, I understand that people have been going crazy right now. The past couple of years, Nick Cannon and Kyrie Irving and Dave Chappelle and we've there's one I'm missing, Kanye West. So we've been calling all these people out, but with this specifically, we wanted to wait and see kind of what more happened, because he said something that again is something separate for us. So our CEO posted a clarification or further explaining where that comes from, and he ended his clarification. You can find on his Instagram page and on the Ipsy page that he won't classify Jamie Foxx as an anti-Semite. There's not enough evidence to prove that, and the principle that he was invoking is one that is not only unique to our culture or separate, specific to our culture, but if I were to draw a Venn diagram of the blood libel that the Jews killed Jesus and therefore we gotta avenge his death, which is already a stupid thing because it's like if you're a Christian, wasn't he supposed to die? Like, and isn't he alive? Like, anyway, so that's a whole other thing. And then a circle of this principle of traitors, they would just be two separate circles. They wouldn't touch. They have nothing. One didn't derive from the other. One wasn't taken from the other. We didn't take a trope and make it our own. It's a completely different thing that originated from something completely different. And the wording he used, and because of the climate we lived in, it perked ears up, which is understandable. And so we sought to kind of further clarify where that came from and how that has nothing to do at all with the blood libel. And we're very much aware of the blood libel. And you know, most of the response we got, it was actually pretty good. And but we got some pushback, you know, and to kind of echo what our CEO was saying about that, and I'll say this, is that we said what we said. You can read the clarification. If you, after reading that, you reject what we're saying and you don't care, no matter what happens, he said it, he meant it, and he was inciting violence, he did it on purpose, and screw him, I never want to deal with him again. You know, that's a personal decision of yours. That's just what you gotta deal with what you gotta deal with. You gotta do what you gotta do. But we're not going to come after someone who that we're not actually sure of what they meant. Does that make sense? We're not going to come after someone just to whatever, stay in good standing with our Jewish, whatever, if we don't think that they're actually anti-Semites. And we pull no punches about calling out Jew haters. Like I said, we all the time, and sometimes at the expense, we've gotten lots of blowback from the Black community, especially when Dave Chappelle did a stand-up and then we wrote a piece about it, we talked about it, we talked about a speech and everything. Come on, Dave Chappelle. I mean, that talking about icon in the Black community. We don't care. When we see it, we call it out. Farrakhan, Nation of Islam, Black Hebrew Israelites, list goes on and on and on. So we don't make any bones about that. So it's not that we were afraid to call out Jamie because of whatever the reason is. We want to be responsible and walk in integrity in this fight that we're doing. And you would want us to. The people that we're partnering with, people that you would want us to. Otherwise, we become another Black Lives Matter where we're just kind of saying what we know you want to hear and taking your money, right? That's not what we're doing. And so that is why we took the time to explain where that comes from. And I'll say one last thing, and I'll give it to you, Olga, if you want to say anything, is that I've been seeing since then that notion that, you know, our trope is not your colloquialism. And to my response to that is, you're absolutely right. It's not. It's totally not. Because that's not what we've invoked for generations and generations. The only thing that seemingly links the two things are the fact that the wording is a little bit similar in what Jamie Foxx said, but the principle of a Judas is something that goes way far back. And so in the spirit of building bridges, maintaining bridges, again, we are certainly not in the business of burning bridges, but we also are not going to start being dishonest in order to maintain those bridges. So we're gonna continue to do our very best to call anti-Semitism wherever we see it, whether it's in the Black community, or it's in the white community, whether it's in the colleges and universities, where in my opinion, that's like the most pressing right now, where it's in. And we'll do that with utmost integrity. We'll apologize when we're wrong. We'll back up and say our bad, all that stuff. But we'll do it in as much honesty as we can do it. And I hope that makes sense. Olga, if you go ahead and say whatever you need to say, ma'am.
I don't have much to add to what you've said. I may just comment to emphasize a point that you really raised in relation to IPSI having integrity. And that is something that people have come to expect of us and something that we're going to continue to be about. We've been appreciated for the moral clarity that we bring to both the conversation as well as the fight, as well as a nuanced understanding of, if I may be so bold to say, the Black community, because we live, eat, and breathe the Black community. Again, we don't speak for everybody, but we do have, particularly our CEO, and other members of our staff, we bring to the table a deep understanding of our community's history, of Christianity.
Mm.
And so the opportunity to contribute to this with the intention of building bridges as well as mending fences where those fences need to be mended, as well as educating, right, and creating ambassadors. It is our responsibility to be consistent, to I also want to use the word faithful in that,
Mm.
and the opportunity for nuance to be shared where nuance is necessary also can't be overlooked. And that nuance needs to come to the table, because if it's nuance that will ensure that truth prevails, then that needs to happen. Truth is not a respecter of persons. And
Mm.
we're in this for the long haul. We're just not in it to to give the popular opinion or the popular response. So I'm hoping that people will all around take a step back and consider. And there was an invitation that was extended by a CEO earlier today, if there's a desire for further engagement, to do so. Because, and I realize that I said that I didn't have much to add, but here I go. What will happen instead, and what we've seen happen, is that it gives credence to some of the accusations that are already out there around this conversation, right? Around calling out Jew hatred where it exists, around calling things out and people out. And it's, if you call everything everything, then it becomes nothing.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it is tricky, and it is very sensitive, and we don't at all minimize that. We also say that there's truth and nuance that at times is needed as part of the conversation if we want to be effective.
Beautiful. I appreciate that. Thank you, Olga. And I'm seeing more people kind of hop on Instagram. It's good to see you. Good to be with you. You all, again, in the name of truth and justice in the American way, or whatever you want to call it, is, we do what we do, because it's a calling. It's we try our best. Like I said, we're not right about something. We'll fix it. Tell us. Let us know. We'll look into it and we'll do our very best. And we'll do our very best in this fight to stand with Israel, stand with the Jewish people, to promote a strong Africa-Israel alliance, to promote strong Black-Jewish relations, and to continue this. I don't like the word allyship. I'm gonna say friendship. We talked about that last week. That true allyship isn't really allyship. It's rooted in friendship. If you're genuinely somebody's friend, you care about them and the things they care about. You don't have to agree on everything, but you accept the differences that you have. You're genuinely friends. I have a lot of friends, especially in the music space, that are, most of them are very politically different than me. Most of them, we don't agree on a lot of other things. We agree on music and the music that we like, and we play a lot of music, but we're friends and we care about each other, and we're there for each other, and we do that's so that the allyship will come naturally. Um, and so that's what we seek to continue to strengthen and promote here at IPSI. So it is 9:07 Eastern time. We're a little bit over. I want to say thank you all for tuning in. Again, this is Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel's Forum on Israel, Africa, and Black America. Next week, our CEO is going to share a little bit about the African Leadership Summit that he had attended in Jerusalem with Pastor Shagan. It's a lot of amazing things are happening in terms of Israel-Africa relations. It's beautiful. He's going to share more about that. Please give to IPSI, ibsi.org/donates. You can become a legacy builder. You see, I have my T-shirt here, legacy builder. That is someone who gives monthly. Please consider doing that. A small amount if you need to, but those small donations are huge. They help us. They're the lifeblood of any organization, and so we ask for your donations. Please, you can scan the QR code there, and do it now. We appreciate it, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Olga, for being here with us, and sharing with us. And you all take care. Have a good rest of your week. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.